didn't know any tree. And I would stand in front of them talking to myself, pretending that I was teaching them. When I went to the education office to protest to the education officer, an ex-serviceman, Mr. Essien, I was lucky he didn't have a gun. But he understood my protest, eventually transferred me to a middle form 4, rather than a class of what? 3 levels, P4, P5, P6 combined. So it was not just one level at which I was causing havoc. Maybe that's a bit dramatized, but it was real, it's real. Can we lay the foundations of mathematics in a language that the young people have not yet learned? Can we do that for science? Experiments have been done in Nigeria, the Yoruba language, thing. One class introduced to all subjects, at least throughout their primary education, with Yoruba as the medium of instruction. Another set, control group, did what we inherited from our colonial experience. They were taught every subject in English. At the end of the primary school session, 6-year period, those for whom Yoruba was used as a medium of instruction performed better in every language, every subject, including English. They traced them to the secondary school level, it was the same. There are arguments on both sides, so I'm not oversimplifying it. For a long time, I wrote my poetry only in English. Until I went home one day to inform my family that I was going somewhere where I had been invited for a poetry festival. I don't know whether it was Rotterdam International Poetry Festival or somewhere else. Then my sister asked me a very simple question. So, the work you are doing in poetry must be good for people to be inviting you all over the place. But have you ever thought that this is not fair? We sent you to school. When are you going to give us some of your poetry in a way?
I was the first person voice. There were so many versions, and I was testing things, trying things, and then with editorial help, Cassava Republic was amazing. We whittled it down to 2 characters, because at some point Uche's brothers were talking, because there was the geopolitical story as well, which I could not tell as an enslaved person who ends up in the Salaga market. What does she know about the British coming down from the south? So you had to tell a true story. So how do you tell that detail without making the reader say, no way that character can tell you that information? So I thought about Uche's brothers, because they would be directly involved in fighting and in administrative affairs. But Uche, she pushed to be that person who would put that information forward. She really did push, because at first she would tell some things and then she got married. I'm not giving away too much. She got married and her husband didn't want her involved in the political running of Salaga Pembe. So how would she get that information? So I thought, okay, her brothers had to be the ones telling that story. It didn't work out. The editors told me it didn't work out. So eventually, Uche had that agency herself, and she managed to be the bearer of that information. So they're interesting craft questions as you're writing. But to do 2 voices, sometimes there's subtle tricks. Just on a sentence level, I knew that Amina is a daydreamer. Her head is always somewhere. She's thinking of of all sorts of things but the present. So to render her character, I would write long sentences, long flowy sentences. And then Wuche is direct, she's no nonsense, she wants to get things done, so her sentences are snappier. So these are tiny tricks that you can use to get your characters to be very different. So, yeah, those are craft things you learn as you read other novels as well, and as you take other books apart. And yeah, so it's like building, and sometimes you have to, if you have a block you're putting next to another block, so you have to cut it to make it fit. So it really is a work of constructing and building. It was putting together a family tree, which is, I think, a thing that writers like doing too. And my father said, so the slave's daughter was Imashetu, and then Imashetu's daughter was Imalari. I said, wait, what? The slave? Who was this person? And and that's what she was remembered as, the slave. I don't have a name. And the other details I was able to extract from family members was that she could have been Fulani, and she could have come from Burkina Faso, from Niger or Mali. One of my uncles said she could have been Gurunchi, which is an ethnic group found in the north, or she could have been Burma. And that she was light-skinned or red-skinned. And it's interesting because in my family, I'm really dark, I'm Sahelian black, but in my family, there are flashes of red. So my sister is much lighter skinned than I am. So her color keeps coming up every generation. I have an uncle who is very light skinned too, and then everybody else is brown. Yeah, but she keeps showing up, this ancestor. So this is all I had to work with. And that she ended up in the Salaga market, and the rest was research and imagination. And I think embodiment, I think there was a part of possession as well, because I had to let her spirit speak through me, so yeah. And I said this on some panels that I say that I didn't have that much information, but there are some values that I'm sure came from here, because my father talks about his grandmother, this is her daughter, and he says that she was the kindest woman that he ever knew. She would, Imashita was named after her, she would collect strays, madmen would come to her house to be fed, and she was an amazing woman. And I see my father as well, like he can't turn anybody away. He has a certain spirit of generosity, yeah, and I think it trickles down from this ancestor of ours. So I had to take apart our family a little bit to see what values we had in common, like, over the generations, and then I was able to piece together who this woman might have been. Yeah. Something new. It was Philomena, I can't remember her last name. We were on the same panel earlier today. She's studying this for her MPhil, and she said she was surprised. She thought she would come away from her research. She's studying why the silence around slavery in Ghana. And she came away learning that people were just apathetic about it. And that shocked me. Because what I was reading, what I was getting in my research was shame. I thought people were too ashamed to talk about it. But she said after doing her research, people just don't care. So I have to think about your question again with this new information. If you're dealing with apathy, that's hard. Because shame, I think you can work around, but apathy, you have to make a movie, a Black Panther or something to get people to wake up. So it's a question, it's a discussion that we should have. I was really shocked because I thought people just didn't want to talk about it because they were ashamed of our involvement in the slave trade. And then if you had an ancestor like mine, you're ashamed of having been enslaved. People just said, it's in the past. So what? Yeah, but I think if there are more movies and children from an early age, if they're introduced to books that talk about this, it might change even empathy and wake them up and they'll start asking questions. Why do we do this? Mommy, why do we do this? Isn't it wrong? Why do we do this? So children's books, I do want to write children's books, but those who already do it, please, let's tackle these themes. And then just conversations, radio shows, whatever media we can find, I think that those are ways of opening up conversations. And then also, there's the issue of monuments, like there's the Elmina Castle, and Cape Coast. Some people say they should be castles of monstrosity, like places that we don't keep up. We should just use them to remind ourselves that we went through this horrible period. But I think they could serve as centers for learning and for teaching us. And Salaga is one of those places that needs help because the museum is run down. Even the slave market where people were tied to stones is now a lorry station. So yeah, using these sites as places to educate and as places of conversation even could be other ways of broaching the subject of slavery. Yeah. Forest. A list of noisy things. Lizards, dogs, donkeys, hyenas, chickens, and guinea fowl. Birds in general. Flies and mosquitoes. Geckos mating. Wafa Sapong, the short man, during the day. Wafa Sapong talking to his wives. Wafa Sapong fighting with his wives. Wafa Sapong's wives fighting with each other. Wafa Sapong's wives pounding dried leaves or fufu. Hassana having her hair braided by Amina. Heavy rainfall on the thatch roof. The bracelets clinking up and down Wafa Sapong's first wife's arms. The second wife singing. The third
as these robes gladly swing to the incessant rhythm. There is a sudden petric wind that comes rushing violently into my nose. This reminds of decaying hands in government offices. You see these things on my head, hanging idly like rags. My joy and awe of if reggae sneaks through my chamber with a new morn blushing upon my dreads, a petty madness comes. Then I do the jump. One leg high, one leg low, one hand high, one hand low. Shake off my dirty dreads, my mind not clean, and sing. Jah, I am grateful for the abundant breath. I thank you for my mother in Africa.
While the silent wind unto all this a witness is, I shall beg the trotting toad to teach me to hide, how to tiptoe against the tide in the serpent's hiss. And in the serpent's hiss, descend, O God, unto mammalian jungle dungeon, and help your disciples to teach me to forget the very things I ought not to forget. Breathing, thinking, and dreaming. Descend, O God, someone has stolen away my great-grandmother's bones. Let human beings be human beings again. Let human beings be human beings again. Let human beings be human beings again.
Who needs solitude to breathe, who refused peace and quiet in the face of injustice, who chose gulags when the only option of freedom was in a city under jackboots, those who smuggled out their truths on toilet paper and wrote back from exile, telling us there was a country, its dream aborted in the half of a yellow sun. Where would we be without the bards who showed us the path of thunder and unraveled the house of hunger? But weep not, child, the beautiful ones are not yet born. This is for the post-colonial pens, writing rainbows across a dark sky and eclipsing single stories. Those who pitch their voices against the noise, frame a new age with language, paint a better world for themselves and for us, giving nothing but alphabet, pay no mind to the rumors, the stories are still alive, in books, in bits and bytes, in the conscience of a world dancing to the rhythm of its own delusions. This right here is for the tribe, for those who come out of their heads to drink at festivals, who still writes to convince parents they can be something better than lawyers, who still writes because the urge is stronger than death. This is for the last ones left, recipients of the torch, pouring sentences to keep the flame burning. Those who do this for something more than prizes, who write past rejection letters. As long as the universe holds, there will be stories to tell, and this is for the tellers, for the chosen and the true, for the tested